Well, this year, KEZI 9 News marks half a century on the air in Eugene. We first started broadcasting in December 1960.
And a lot has happened in that 50 years. Here to tell you how we plan to celebrate is KEZI 9 News anchor Rick Douglas. Rick?
Thanks, Dan and Gia. Each night here on KEZI 9 News, we'll be dipping into the archives and bringing back some of the memorable stories from the past 50 years. Given that we're in the midst of an election season, I thought it would be fun to show you what happened here in Eugene during the presidential campaigns of 1976.
It's hard to remember if there's ever been an Oregon presidential primary with close races on both the Republican and Democratic sides. And this is the man who has the job everyone else wants. President Ford came here locked into a close race with former California Governor Ronald Reagan. Behind in committed delegates as recently as 3 days ago, a loss for the president here would hurt badly. But Reagan's organization here never really recovered after his early defeats by the president, and even the candidate himself admitted in Eugene Sunday he's an underdog.
Worried about Oregon? Well, I think you have to accept my position that I'm an underdog here. If you look at the Oregon voting pattern, yes, we're here hoping for at least a good showing in delegates because you do apportion them proportionately to the vote.
So Reagan just hammered home his theme and hoped he'd wind up with a good percentage of the delegates. Another candidate who came to Eugene was also talking about delegates, former Georgia Governor Jimmy Carter. By far the frontrunner in the race for the Democratic nomination, Carter was stung prior to Oregon by his two major opponents here. 2 weeks ago, Idaho Senator Frank Church upset Carter in Nebraska, a win that even Church didn't expect. Last week, California Governor Jerry Brown defeated Carter handily in Maryland, a win most observers expected, but not by the margin Brown pulled in. In his first visit to Eugene last week, Jimmy Carter made a point of telling reporters he was here to pick up delegates, that a defeat here by either Church or Brown would not hurt him nearly as much as they would be hurt if he defeated them. But by week's end, Carter was concerned enough by trends here that he decided to spend an extra 3 days in Oregon. Still, at the end of an appearance at the Lamb and Will show at the fairgrounds Saturday, Carter told Action News he wasn't worried.
Well, I just can't. Well, all over the West, we are much stronger than we had anticipated. I have projected next Tuesday night 100 delegates, but I was thinking I probably would have to get them in Tennessee, Arkansas, and Kentucky. But after we came out here and did a little campaigning around in Nevada, South Dakota, California, Oregon, and Idaho, we feel much better about it, so we decided to spend a couple more days out here. If I thought we didn't have a chance, I'd be back in the other 3 states. But I think we'll probably have an excellent chance to get more delegates in the 3 western states next Tuesday night than maybe any other candidate, in spite of the fact that we're running against favorite sons in this region.
In spite of what Carter was saying, the truth is that Frank Church and Jerry Brown could hurt him badly in Oregon. A poll released by the Oregonian on Election Day showed both leading Carter over the weekend. There is little doubt that if Carter were to finish third in Oregon, it would do a lot to slow the momentum he is so proud of. The problem faced by Church and Brown was that they tend to appeal to the same segment of the voters. Both made appearances before large crowds at the University of Oregon. They both tried to come on with a certain amount of flair. Church threw frisbees in spite of the fact the art was new to him. He also stressed his record in the Senate.
Let's get this in. The White House is no place for on-the-job training when it comes to the presidency of the United States. You look at that record for 20 years and you'll see it's a record of consistent support for minority rights. And that's not because there are any big minorities in my state. There aren't. I didn't vote that way for votes. I voted that way out of principle, and the record is there. It speaks for itself.
Jerry Brown's write-in campaign was perhaps most memorable, at least for those who tried to capture it on film. He decided to walk from the university to the Register Guard downtown. The idea was to hold a walking news conference. The problem was the crowd never left Jerry Brown. We finally edged our way into the governor and asked why people should vote for him rather than Frank Church. We almost lost cameraman Jim Hayworth and his camera.
Well, because as Governor of California and as Secretary of State before that, I've had the experience as a chief executive. I come from a state that is very broad and diverse. We have a budget larger than most of the countries of the world. And I think that kind of experience qualifies me for the very difficult job of the presidency.
Hey, watch the camera, please.
All in all, it's been a presidential campaign Eugene certainly hasn't ever seen the likes of. And when the voting started, no one could say how it would turn out, at least not with any certainty.
And that's the way it was in 1976. And incidentally, that year, Jimmy Carter beat Ronald Reagan to become president. Reagan would go on to win the presidency 4 years later. By the way, you can share your recollections at our website, KEZI.com.